Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you all for your patience with the technical challenges. I'm Sarah Allen Short. I go by Sass because our fearless leader, Sarah Sheehan, is also a Sarah, and so she was there first. So since she's the founder, she's Sarah. I'm Sass. We are from Bravely. We're a coaching company. We're not going to sell to you today, but we're going to talk a lot about coaching because we really believe in it. Sarah is the least salesy CEO I've ever worked with, so we're going to talk to you about helping leaders through turbulent times because guess what? We're in turbulent times. And I would love, Sarah, just to kick off with you telling a little bit about why you started Bravely and what you think about this moment, this unprecedented moment, because apparently we don't get precedented moments anymore. You're on mute.
Sorry. I just wanted to call out that I think you commented in the chat, and Sass was supposed to be Maureen, who's our head of coaching today, who unfortunately fell ill and couldn't join me. So Sass is graciously stepping in, but I think you might have said thank you all in the chat, and it says Maureen Kennedy. So Maureen is Sass
Oh,
today,
yes, yes.
and Sarah is Sass. So now that we've
Yes,
got that out of the way,
yes.
let's do this. So thank you all for being here. I know we're the last session of the day, and just joining us for this conversation. The background on me is that I started my career in HR. I actually genuinely loved it. It gave me the opportunity to connect and meet all of the people across the organizations that I worked for. But one of the things that I always noticed was that the people that were getting investment in development, like the real support that was life changing, were often cherry picked. So naturally, I was like, how do I get picked? And I always felt like that was sort of backwards. My father was an employment lawyer my whole life. He was representing people who were underrepresented in the workforce. And it was always like in my DNA and blood to figure out like, how can I help those people that aren't actually like getting what they need in the moment? And so that was foundational for us founding Bravely. Since the beginning, our goal has been to figure out like, how do we get this transformational resource, which is coaching, in the hands of as many people as we possibly can. So
So
that's
like
why.
the democratization of coaching rather than just
Exactly.
only high potentials, but you do still do high potentials, leaders, all that sort of thing.
Yes, we have a whole suite of coaching products ranging from executive all the way down to ICs or people that are very early in their career. And then with the introduction of AI, I think finally, which is like absolutely a dream come true for me, I think we're going to be able to extend it even further, like to frontline, like to people or populations that truly would never get this type of investment.
Cool, cool.
Interesting you
I
say that because I'm just gonna pop the poll results up here.
Mhm.
Second question, using AI, the answer is overwhelmingly no. And so I think
Mm,
it'll be a very fascinating topic for today's session. And
yeah.
the first question here about the barriers for organizations when it comes to implementing coaching. The top one is budget for sure, and then utilization and coach uncertainty. So I yeah, anything either of you wanted to comment on for this?
Yeah. I mean, no surprise that budget is the leading barrier that everyone is facing. And certainly, like all of these are like areas that we touch on with our customers or potential customers that we talk to every day. Um, I think in terms of AI tools, I think that if we were to fast forward to a year from now and ask the same question, that the answer would be different. So I think it's upon us, and we're all going to be tasked with changing how we work and operate as it relates
Amazing.
to AI.
Mm-hmm. Very fascinating. All right
Can we
then.
talk? Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh no, I was gonna say in that case, I will exit the stage and I will give you the full floor and we'll see you in a little bit. I'm
Okay, great.
excited. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Rebecca.
Thank you. So, Sarah, I'm curious about, I mean, this is recognition week. And you and I were
Mhm.
talking a little bit about this yesterday. How do you think about recognition as maybe a little bit different than the way it's typically used?
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of highlighting the importance of recognition, but I also think for the purpose of our conversation today, like one of the things that I think goes un that is not talked about enough is just recognition in the form of I see you, or I recognize that you need a different level of support, or I recognize that the moment that we're in right now is really challenging, and I'm not going to pretend that that's not your reality. I think like actually having the courage to name things is a form of recognition that is often not focused on in the workplace or is avoided.
It's almost like as recognition has become more of a an HR term, we've forgotten the original meaning of recognition, which is to see someone, which sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think, that can also like get wrapped up in DEI work but I think in the moment that we're
Don't
in
say
right.
DEI, Sarah. You're gonna get canceled.
True. But do we want to have a webinar about that?
Yeah, sorry, no,
Um,
sorry, I got you off track. So yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
but I think it's about in the moment that we're in right now with everything that's happening in the world. I mean, I feel like for the last 6 years, there's like a before 6 years ago and after when COVID hit. For me, like I moved when that happened, so it's like very distinct in my mind. But since then, in my profession, all I've been talking about is like how the sky is falling, and it's getting worse and worse, and the impact of that on the workplace, how people are showing up. Um, is enormous. And so to me, recognition, I try and show up every day um, and try and facilitate an environment where people can actually tell me the truth about how they're feeling or showing up at work. And I think also being the type of leader that can recognize it, like I know this is really hard right now, and here's why. Um, is my like definition of recognition. And I will just say that 6 years ago when all of like this chaos began, or what feels like chaos began for me, we were very different about how we approached this in the workplace. We were like naming everything, and we were rolling out all the support, and we were, our CEOs and executives were talking openly about the moments that we were in, and they were making statements about social injustice, and everyone has like zipped their lips now, right?
That was
So
the summer of George Floyd when every company in the world was coming out with how to support your black and brown employees through this moment and all of that sort of thing. And so you're seeing that that's really changed.
totally, I've changed, if I'm being totally honest, as someone who has never shied away from standing up and raising my voice. And I'm just, the, it almost feels like the culture of the world has changed a little bit where we're not, I mean, I'm very vocal in my personal life about how I stand, but I am not really talking to my team every day about what's happening because that would be all I'm talking about.
Right,
So
right.
I think it's like really challenging for leaders to figure out, how to recognize right now.
How to
Uh,
recognize that people you're coming to work, all of us, you're a CEO.
mhm.
I'm a CMO. All of us are coming to work with everything that's going on in the world, everything that's going on in our personal lives,
Yeah.
worry about the economy, worry about AI.
Yeah.
And as a leader, and I'm curious in the chat if you guys are seeing this in your leaders, that your leaders are feeling burned out and that your leaders are feeling overwhelmed by how to address the moment, but be politically correct, but keep the focus on the work. But there's new layoffs every other day. Sarah, as a leader, how do you do it? How do you do it for yourself, and how do you help your leaders?
Yeah, I think what I am seeing, even in the conversations that I have with our clients, and then obviously with the people that I work with every day, excuse me, I'm going to be coughing because I'm getting over a cold.
Another reason you're overwhelmed.
I know.
Oh,
It's almost like we're all facing so much, and it's this, I don't feel like everyone around me is panicked, but they are exhausted. And
yeah.
when you take that exhaustion and you mix it with the uncertainty that we're all facing, it's hard to figure out for a manager to, what do I say to my team? Because they are in this moment of like, I'm just waiting for the next thing to happen. And there's a lot of ambiguity, especially like in the tech world, where some of these bigger companies are doing mass layoffs, which is, for many a signal that there's more to come, right? So there's all this ambiguity about where we're headed, what AI means for jobs. Everyone here already talked about like budget being the biggest constraint. And then we have like these managers in the middle who are getting all the pressure um, from they're getting pushed from above, and then all of their people are asking like what's going on, and they don't have the answers, but they have to show up and be this steady force, right? And they're trying so hard to hold it together. I see it in my own team. I feel it myself sometimes. um, it's really difficult, and you can't. I was telling Sass, I'll just share this really quickly. Like I already have to like limit my exposure to news because it's so traumatizing. And then right before I came onto this conversation, I had like time blocked. I was going to like prepare. And my teenage daughter called me from school, and she had just had this moment at school. She was hysterical. She had stood up for a friend, and somebody else had accused her of like all these things that weren't true. And she was just having this like meltdown that I had to stay on the phone and address for the 30 minutes that I had blocked to prep for this call, right? So that is just like a very small example of how our lives get knocked around every day on top of the macro issues. And if you're a leader, you're still expected to show up, be steady. And this whole conversation is centered around how can we help people do that? And, we don't have any like explosive answers, but I think like for me, I simply have to do the same things over and over again to get myself to that place where I show up as authentically as I can, that I'm, despite having anxiety, I feel anxious for my daughter right now. I'm, anxious about 100 other things that we could list. But how do we really show up every day, not then transferring that to the people that we work alongside
It's so
and work for?
interesting. And Sarah, I'm just like kind of responding in real time. There's a lot of chat going on about like people are really glad to see this conversation, and I think people really appreciate your authenticity about it. And I know that you brought some frameworks. Um
Hmm.
and I'm kind of tempted to like not show the frameworks and continue with the real conversation.
Okay.
But in the chat, so in the chat, let us know if you want to see the frameworks of the specific frameworks. Just say a yes or a no, I
I can
guess.
also
But
just voice over them and share them afterwards.
yeah, or maybe, yeah, maybe show them and talk about them as I know you would anyway, in like a real way, and not like in a this is the framework, and if you follow these 4 steps, no one at your company is ever going to be stressed out again, or you know
I
what I mean? Like,
swear to God, I just use this framework with my daughter. No
okay, so
joke.
we're getting a yes, but keep the vibe.
I'll just like walk you through this framework because it seems so basic. Like, listen, this is I'm not like reinventing a wheel here. However, I think giving people very simple tools to follow is the path forward for all of us. Um, when I was on the phone with my daughter, I was like, stop right now, take a deep breath with me right now, stop speaking. And because she was just off into the races, like crying and hysterical. And while you may not be crying and hysterical, because you're a teenager being accused of things that you didn't do, you still need to remind yourself before you enter into a space, whether that's a meeting, a call, a Slack reply. We all get triggered. And when we have these outside forces happening in our lives that are also impacting how we're showing up at work, the triggers like they come faster. So the first thing that, and we talk about this in the workshops that we hold for our customers, like this is just part of like a larger like 90-minute workshop where we talk about like using this calm framework where you first center yourself, like whatever you need to do to regulate your nervous system before entering the room. And the reason for this is because people read your energy. Everyone on this call has had a manager or a leader that they worked with who literally set them, like, turn them on their side every time they entered a conversation or a room with this person. Like, your regulated nervous system immediately gets dysregulated by this person. And so you don't want to be that leader. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're being that leader. So this is just like, do this every time. Calm your nerves. Make sure that like you're not going to react, that you're going to respond to people, that you are there first, coming from like that place of like the foundation is set. And then anchoring to your values. This is literally what I just said to my daughter, where I said, whose opinion matters? That was the question I asked her. Because this is something I drill into my daughters. I have two daughters, their heads all the time. Like, you know who you are. You know that you haven't said anything about anyone. That is all that matters, right? Same thing goes for leaders. And sometimes you might be in organizations where your values don't align with the other leaders that you're reporting to or you're standing next to. Doesn't matter. What are your values as a leader? And make sure that you are connecting to that. If you are somebody that values transparency and that is a core value for you, that is how you have to show up. Even if those around you are not operating in the same way, you can still figure out a way to demonstrate that to your team so that they can continue to trust you. Because there is no path forward without that trust. Then it's all about creating that space for people to give you feedback. If you're not willing to facilitate a conversation around let's just use the layoffs that are happening. If people are afraid that that might happen in your own organization, them elevating that and naming that for you, like, it should be second nature for them. They should be able to say, like, I'm really concerned about this. And you may not have the answers, but again, going back to your values, transparently saying, I have no idea what is going to happen, but here's a space for us to talk about it. And then I think finally, just making sure that people understand that they can fail and make mistakes. Like, that's where change happens. That's where growth happens. The moment that we're in it Bravely right now, we're building new products and we're operating in a really different way and we're moving super fast. And it is, some days it's like a damn nightmare, to be honest. So where you're just like, I can't believe I forgot to do this thing, or we didn't scope this out. And it's very easy to point fingers in those moments. Um, but, and I mean, I this morning like had to admit, like, I did it. Like, that was me. Like, I'm the one who's like pushing the bad behavior. And you got to create that safety for people to make mistakes, because that's where the real growth happens. So this is just a framework that we talk about with the people that we support via Bravely. That seems really simple, but that's what you need, when you're in a moment of high stress like we are right now.
It's interesting because this framework reflects a lot of what people are saying in the comments, but it just puts it all in like a memorable um uh, uh a way to sort of, I could almost imagine posting that on a post-it note on your desk and, using that to sort of guide you through conversations.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about coaching because I do want to talk a little bit about solutions. And I think it's important to note that we are pro coaching, however you get coaching. We're not, again, this is not a sales pitch for us.
No.
Um, but it occurs to me as someone in the comments, actually, Eliane, I think is how you say her name, was talking about how teams don't just need direction, they need reassurance, trust, and space to contribute meaningfully. And I think a lot of that can come from a manager. And I wonder if you think a manager can do the coaching piece in the same way as an external coach, whether that's through a platform or an individual coach or whatever. Is there a difference in what that coach can bring to the table related to supporting managers through turbulent times?
Yeah, I mean, people find a lot of value in coaching when they have terrible managers. Let's just name that. Because they all of a sudden have found like a safe space where they're like, oh, I can say anything to you and you're not going to use this against me later. And I think that's people's biggest fears when it comes to being transparent with their managers. Um, but if you're a great manager, you can absolutely be a great coach. I think that that's a requirement of
Mm,
being a great leader is and being a great leader, in my opinion, is not making it about you.
mm,
So I think a lot of managers, they try and solve the problems for their people, or they are very good at giving direction, but like they manage all of the direction that they're giving. They're not giving enough rope to actually allow people the space to become better at what they do. And so the best leaders, the best managers are the ones that know how to coach their people because coaching is the opposite of telling people what to do.
mm. It's letting them find letting their own intuition, pattern recognition, experience lead rather than dictating what they should
That's
do.
right. That's
I,
right.
I feel like in my experience, a lot of times strong managers don't want their people to have coaches because they think they should be doing the job. And the reality is that all the managers are under all this pressure that we're talking about. Everyone who's in this webinar is under all this pressure. And I think sometimes we overcommit on the coaching. Like we have to, the time that we have with our employees, there's going to be coaching moments, but we can't spend an hour a week coaching them because we have to figure out
Mhm.
if the thing is getting done and if this is getting done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it feels like a good way to support, or I mean, I guess I would ask you, do you get different feedback from managers, execs, and ICs on how coaching helps them?
Yeah. I think that people need to, when they work with an outside coach, it also gives them the opportunity to reflect on how they manage their manager, which
Oh,
is a whole different, there's the use case for like, I want to get better at my job, I want to grow, I want to get to the next level. And coaching certainly helps people like figure out what that path is. Like, how do you embody more executive presence? How do I communicate more effectively? How do I establish better relationships? Like all of these ingredients that will help you grow. One of the things that I find really valuable when my direct reports get coaching is that my personality is like, I'm creating the safety. I'm definitely like giving direction on what I want done. I give people also a ton of rope to do it. But there's like a lot going on all the time. And I think the few people, everybody at my company has coaching, but those that are like really committed to it, like I know because they handle me in a way that other people don't.
oh,
Um,
interesting. Can
mhm.
you say more about that?
Yeah, it's
Like
actually
the
really
managing up
yeah,
idea?
it's really good for me. It's managing up. Like that's just like a talent. I am terrible at that, by the way. Always was. Um, do like I worry that if I am ever not a CEO, like the managing up part, I don't know. Um,
Well, you have to manage up to your board.
I
Yeah,
do. That's true.
yeah,
But that's just very formal. It's not frequently.
yeah.
But I'm really good at like being with my team. Um, and they're not afraid to push back and they're not afraid to challenge me and they're not afraid to like reel me in and be like, Sarah, like we've got to do like these three things first. Like I get it. Like here's the big vision and you're
Yeah.
10 steps ahead and we've got to come back here. And those are the most effective people within a team, in my opinion. And a lot of times they don't know how to do that if they're not working with somebody else where they can go and say, like, she's driving me nuts.
Right.
Because
Right.
I
That
definitely, like, there's so much love behind those words, I'm sure, for some of the people on my team that say them too. But, like, I'm positive that they say those things.
Yeah, yeah. So I know one of the things that we were asked about was to talk a little bit about AI and the AI's role in coaching. And I really do also want to keep the very vulnerable and, honest tone of this conversation. And I guess what I'm wondering is seeing that so many of the people, I mean, This whole conversation is around leading in turbulent times, supporting your leaders through turbulent times, which again
Hmm.
are just constant these days.
Hmm.
And I think everybody would agree that coaching is a great way to do that, one of several great ways to do that. Do you guys like the UFO behind my head? Can you see it? It's kind of there, wait, there it is.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, there's a lot of AI coaching to, there's a lot of ways to get coached by AI on the scene,
Yeah.
right? You can go into ChatGPT and say, she's driving me crazy. What should I do? You can use an AI, a purpose-built AI coach like the one we have. There's a few different things to do. How does, given the fact that most of the people in the room are not using AI coaching right now, and it's possible
Hmm.
that there's a lot of skepticism about
Hmm.
AI because it is
Yeah.
taking jobs,
Yeah.
how do you think AI coaching fits into the overall role of supporting employees? Does it replace everything else that's happening? Is it a piece of the puzzle? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. It's interesting because it's so messy right now. Like I have like I was a ChatGPT person and now I'm a new Claude person.
Same.
Um and now I'm just like, I'm once you're committed, it's like you can't go back.
Mm.
And now Claude's like everywhere, connected to everything.
Yeah.
And it's helpful, but it's also really challenging. Like, the thing about AI is that it's like only as good as it's kind of like you're the manager of AI, quite honestly. It's only as good as you manage it. Um, and so it can definitely be helpful, but it's never like right now, you still have to, for certain areas of your business, like you're always going to have a human either managing it or, translating some of it. But
Hmm.
when it comes to coaching, I've used the analogy or the example of Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson. I'm Sarah and I are the same age. I'm about to turn 50 and I'm aging myself, but I was in
I'm
high
already
school
50.
like during the Bulls like three-peat era and I was obsessed with Michael Jordan. And that relationship between coach and athlete is very different than the professional coaching relationship that we are all used to, which is like I meet with my coach every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. Um, and we talk about usually like some of the patterns, but they're all dictated by like me, and that coach maybe doesn't see the other side of it. Still incredibly powerful and something that I never want to live without. But there's a use case for the Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan example where Michael wasn't talking to Phil every 2 weeks. Phil was like, after the game, we're looking at the tapes, we're rewinding. I'm going to point out exactly where you went wrong so that you don't do it in the next game that we're in.
Hmm.
You could lose it all, right? So I'm being more dramatic, but that's kind of how I see AI coaching stepping in. It's more of like, let me help you determine like, let me help point out all the patterns here that I'm seeing, and let me help you get better day by day. And then you can go and talk to your human coach about those more nuanced, really important things that are happening, like the relationship between you and your manager, or like your long term goals around getting to the director level. But there is a use case for being able to, and the AI has to have incredible context about your company, about you, and it has to have memory so that it ties it all together. But I do think that there's just going to be an enormous opportunity for all of us to get that, what I would describe as like confidential, like still feels like nobody else knows this is going on, like we get with chat. But it's all related to my work and the relationships that I have at work.
So let's talk about when you do have, there's some comments in the chat about
Hmm.
concerns about nuance.
Hmm.
Psychologists have evaluated AI and it misses warning signs and concerning language.
Yeah.
I think so. One thing is to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the difference between coaching and therapy, but how another thing is I think that makes an argument for a purpose-built coach. I talk fast when I get excited. Purpose-built coaching tool instead of just telling people use ChatGPT. How are you thinking about this in product development and in usage?
Yeah. I mean, I hear you, Rebecca. It's giving the nuclear option every time, right? I sent something to someone on my team where it like made me laugh out loud where, somebody was like, I just hit like 10 different cars in the parking lot and drove off. And they were like,
And
you know,
ChatGPT said,
yeah, this is a moment for you to like d dive deeper. Like it was just like
"You
ridiculous,
did
right?
nothing wrong,
Right.
bestie. You're completely right in every situation. You lived your values and you can do no wrong. Go have
Right.
a drink with your friend." And yeah, yeah, totally.
I think we're all getting gaslit in the worst way possible with AI. However, that's not how we're training our AI coach, whose name is B. It's more of like, I like to think of it as like a chief of staff or someone that's going to challenge you and think about things from every angle. I don't, I think everybody should approach this or approach AI in general, with a lot of scrutiny. But, the reality is, if we can build something that does make those connections, we have guardrails and boundaries around, going past certain boundaries, especially because we're building to help people at work. Knowing that, just like I just had this moment with my daughter, that there's going to be things like that that come up that are impacting how I show up at work, and I should still be able to talk to B about that. But it's about helping people, understand themselves better. That is what coaching is meant to do. Even though like you're working with someone else, it's all about you. It's about creating more self-awareness so that you can get unstuck, so that you can actually achieve your goals, and get to new levels that you didn't think you were capable of. And I said this earlier, but one of the things that I'm most excited about is the potential for people who normally don't get investment to actually like get a leg up for once in at work.
Okay, so you're building it as so first, I guess to say what I think I heard you say, you're building it
Hmm.
as a part of the puzzle. So there might be people who are only using AI coaching, but
Hmm.
ideally they'd be using AI with human for the moments that require nuance. Is that right?
Yeah. And so a lot of people like build their own coach into Claude or Chat, just to be clear. Like you don't have to go and use Bravely or B. Like you can do this yourself, like via prompts, and it creates memory. But I think the difference, and we don't like, if you want to learn more about B, you can talk to me after this. So we don't have to like focus too much on it. But it's about like like B would be in this conversation, and if I was working on executive presence after this, she would be in the meeting, and then she would tell me how many filler words I used, how I did against the goals that I have set for myself, and then I could chat with her about that, and then I could be like, Sarah said this thing in there that like really threw me off. And then that would give me a little bit more information about how I was feeling about SAS. And all of this like builds on like having and being able to lean on something, even though it's not a real human, but it has more capacity than a real human. And sometimes we need that at work.
Well, and yours is built by humans. So how have you put in some of those guardrails, or how have you what happens if this is what maybe one of the questions that's going to throw you off. What happens if someone goes in and says something that's scary or
Yeah,
that it is really not equipped to handle?
yeah, there's a whole system in place for that. I can tell you that.
Hmm.
That you wouldn't get if you were using ChatGPT.
Hmm.
Um, and like we certainly wouldn't like go down a path with you if you were talking about something that was dangerous, causing harm to yourself or someone else, and then authorities would be notified.
How do you think the blend of AI and human coaching can support leaders through turbulent times?
I just think that right now we all, like I said before, unfortunately, human leaders are not stepping up right now and addressing things in the way that we would hope. I do think that like middle managers tend to do a better job of this, but they're also then likely not operating with all the information that they'd like to have. Um, so, the way that I see the combination working, like I think AI can give people a sense, whether we agree on this or not, it can give people a sense of stability and support when they aren't getting it in other places. As wild as that sounds.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I've always had a coach. Speaking of coach and the acronym of coach, do you want to share that other framework? Because it people did like the CALM framework.
Yeah. So there's another framework, and this has been around for a while, and we can share this with you.
And if anybody
Um,
has questions while she pulls that up, just drop them in the chat and we'll get to them. Because I think and we can go back to the the bigger idea of just the craziness of the world, or the specifics of AI or anything we've covered.
yeah, and we can send you this. There's also some materials on our website that highlight this as well. But going back to the question around like, can a manager be a coach? Yes, and they should be. And I'm sure that many of you have instituted things or had trainings that help them become better at this. But like I said before, it's really about stepping out of that, like, I'm responsible for all of you and all of the outcomes, and I've got to control everything, and saying, like, how do I really help somebody else take the action here and be like on the side helping them, right? So the coach framework is really about like asking questions. First, you're showing your concern for someone, like what's on your mind. Like someone can use this framework in their one-on-ones. It's a great tool for, just after you kick things off, like how's your weekend, blah, blah, blah. So what's on your mind? Like what's going on? If you know specifically like projects that they're working on or things that they might be challenged by, bringing that up and then obviously actively listening to understand like what's going on. And then, this is something that's a part of every coaching session. It's like, what are we trying to achieve here? Like what's the outcome, or what do you want to be happening? Because then that helps you as the coach. You're the manager and the coach. It's like, if you don't understand what someone wants from you, or from the situation, like then you're just sort of like spinning your wheels. So being really clear about like, what's the outcome that someone's getting from this conversation. And then if they're not sure, like that's when you can ask more questions to really help them sort of land on, I need to figure out like, how to structure this project differently, or I want to get a promotion by the end of the year. Whatever those things are, like really getting clear. They could be small, they could be big. And then helping them understand what it's going to take to get there. So asking them, but first, not telling them, asking them, like, what do you think it's going to take to get this project back on track? And you can be a collaborative partner in helping them brainstorm. It doesn't matter like what level you are. Like we can all benefit from having a thought partner, and that's who you want to be in these moments. But you don't want to tell somebody what to do or give them every idea. Um, and then once you've sort of like gotten everything on the board, so to speak, and talked about like all the potential pathways, it's really getting them to commit. Like, okay, well, what are we going to do first? And like, what does this look like, right? Getting very specific so that it feels achievable. Um, and then always being there to say, what do you need in order to get there? Like, how can I help you? Um, I feel like more and more, this is a question, certainly that I'm asking my team every day because of the moment that we are in, where we have like a lot of tight timelines, where the expectations are really high. And so I'm ending like almost every conversation with like, what can I do to help you achieve this? Um, so again, a very simple framework, but I think one that if you had this in front of you in a one-on-one, it would be really helpful.
That's a good segue, what you said last. How can I help you? How do you, as a leader, balance someone comes in your office and they're like, I'm so stressed out about everything that's going on. I'm so stressed out about the world and the economy, and my kid is sick. And, we have people in meetings all the time at our company with kids in their laps because they're home from daycare. Not every
Hmm.
company is going to be cool with that kind of thing. How do you handle it when someone comes to you and is like completely overwhelmed? At what point do you say, okay, I get it that you're stressed and you have to do your job? Or is that, how do you think about that?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think you're ever going to hear, I mean, I might say those things to another manager,
Hmm.
like in a moment where I'm not regulated.
Right.
But
So
that's,
how would you
yeah,
talk about it with the employee themselves? Just listen and hope that that provides a
yes.
safe space.
Yes, I mean, I would like use a very similar approach and framework that I just shared, where I would really want to understand like what is causing most of this for you. I mean, this happens all the time, right?
Right.
I am not immune to this. I've had it happen too, and I think, this is also depending on, not just who the employee is, because that's not the approach either, because what you do for one, you usually have to do for everyone. Um, but really understanding like what's the driving force behind the stress that someone is feeling. Right now, like I said, it's like the just not being able to digest every day the realities and the atrocities that we're all being faced with. So like that's just like baseline where we all are. And then you're layering in, worrying about a sick parent, or, you don't have childcare for the day. That's happened with someone on my team for a couple of days. And is there a part of me that's like, ugh, this person doesn't have childcare? Well, guess what? I have absolutely been the person that doesn't have childcare. So I
Right.
think we always have to like remember that we're all human and that none of us are immune to these challenges. And so, how do we continue to, somebody not having childcare for 2 days is not a reason to then like push down on them and add more stress, because the outcome is not going to be different if you do that. It's like, what's the culture here that you're trying to create? Like, how do you actually help problem solve? I think this is probably where, like, once you have all of the information, like, that's where you can, try and distill down like what would make this better for you, like what are, describe to me what you need to get unstuck, or, and if they don't know what that is, like
Mhm.
starting to brainstorm, like what if, you took a week off, what if I gave half of this project to someone else, what is it workload, is it you're just burnout? Helping somebody like name what's going on is obviously the first step. And then, trying to get to a place of figuring out, like, when my 5 year, 6 year old is melting down, I do this. I'm like, what could we do to feel this much better right now? Like, what's one thing? Um,
Gosh, I wish my mom was a coach when I was a kid and like had any exposure or experience to human psychology
it's, I'm
whatsoever.
telling you, like, parenting is it's very adjacent to the workplace. I don't know if
It
anybody is like
really
picking
is.
up on this, but I mean, this is I don't mean to like just be relating everything back to my children, but my daughter like put an I above the wrong letter the other day and just like could not handle it. She was writing a letter to a friend. We were going to mail it out, and we live in Virginia, and she put the I over the R instead of the I. And I went in the pantry and closed the door and sat on the floor with her as she cried. And, she just said, I screwed it up. I'm not good enough. And I was like, can I tell you something? I'm like, I felt that way earlier today too. And she's like, what? I think, again, I'm getting off topic, but
I know. I'm just like, you know what my mom would have said is like, get over it.
it's just like, it's all relatable. Like, don't
Yeah.
forget, like, this isn't a framework, but like the moment that we're all in right now, just like, don't forget that this can happen to you too. Being stressed, having a sick parent, not having childcare, we still have to get the thing done, no doubt. How we get there, though, I think, is through rooting and grounding people in practices that can help them sustain resilience through moments like this. And we have to model it.
Which brings us back actually to where we started off with the idea of the leader needing to regulate themselves.
Yeah,
Because you can't sit on the floor and on the pantry floor and cry, let your daughter cry with you if you're not regulated. You
right.
can't be a leader who lets somebody freak out to you if you're not regulated. Lissa had a comment about the CEO is very anxious at her company is very anxious about AI and is bringing that anxiety back. And she's asking, how can we address the conflicting information and scary headlines about AI within the company? And I wonder what
Hmm.
you think about. Obviously, we're not AI experts. I mean, we are AI experts in terms of AI coaching, but is it really more about the leaders being regulated in the face of that, or is it more about addressing the factual content of the fear, or both?
I think it's both. Lisa, I am that CEO. I'm not like I'm not one of the CEOs that like goes on Twitter and is like, we're changing everything. As of today, everybody's like gotta, become AI fluent in our company. But I'm certainly one of those CEOs that like will look at Twitter at night and then like send it. I'll have to stop myself and be like, don't send this right now, like send it in the morning. And then I'll show up the next day and be like, did you see this that I sent you? Like, um, that is I should, that is very bad. And like I said, the people that get coaching on my team are the ones that are like, you really like you're coming across as like crazy a little bit right now. Like the way that you're talking about this thing that you read last night on Twitter. Um, and like we're laughing about it, but it's real. And then
Mhm.
people feel like, oh my God, if I don't know how to do this or if I don't figure this out like tomorrow, I'm gonna lose my job. And now that gets said to somebody else on your team, and then we're off to the races, right? So I think one, you have to make sure that, I mean, I don't know if your CEO is open to feedback, but it's like really level setting that like if we want to engage people in this, we've got to do it in a really thoughtful way. I think you need to do it in a really fast way too. I don't, I think like in the moment we're in right now, leaders are realizing like that if they're not in it, they're behind, and that is real. But you got to name it. That's one thing that I have no problem doing is saying and articulating like this is where I think we are or where we should be, and then making sure that you're also instilling confidence that you can get there. Like I think that's the missing
Mm-hmm.
piece. It's like, people they want a regulated leader, you don't want to lie to anybody if you don't believe it, but you also have to like show them how you're going to get there.
Right.
And like you have to be the confidence bringer. Um, the reason that we named our AI coach B is BEA means bringer of happiness. And I just loved that. I don't claim that we're gonna like solve all of the world's problems, but since day one with Bravely, we had all of these um, we put together like how we wanted a coaching session to go and all these different like pieces of it. And at the end, I just said, all I care about is that somebody leaves this session feeling better. That is it. If that is not accomplished, is not a success as far as I'm concerned.
Hmm.
And I think that's also our job as leaders to be transparent, to be um, rooted like in this calm, but we also have to like give people hope.
Yeah. Do you think it's important to translate that into ROI? Like not to be like the big downer of the whole thing, because I mean,
Damn it, Stats.
I know. Do CEOs and CFOs need to see the ROI of people leaving a session feeling heard as impacting the, overall success of the company, or are there other things that are happening in the coaching that are impacting ROI?
Yeah, I mean, like ROI is like that's it. Like everything has to have an ROI attached to it at work, unfortunately. Like I would love to just sit here and talk about like being a vulnerable leader and creating hope and
Mhm.
um but if I'm not driving revenue, I'm gonna have a terrible board meeting, right? And but like you drive revenue, in my opinion, with these tactics.
Mhm. Well, not just in your opinion, the data shows it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, all the
it's
research
not my opinion.
shows.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Um And I would agree. I'm just reading the chat here. Like, yes, Wendy. Um, if you don't have kids, like you have, like everybody's just bringing something to the table right now that, um, impacts how they do their job. You can't be alive and I'm just a big believer, and anybody that works for me knows this, like that just can't be discounted. And we are discounting it again, I think, more and more.
So you're clearly an empathetic, heart-led leader. I know I'm sure most of the people on this call are in HR or HR adjacent.
Hmm.
People in HR adjacent tend to be more heart-led. They are probably working with managers who have no patience for any of this stuff, that don't care
Yeah.
about being nice to people, that just want to get
Yeah.
the numbers done. Can those and chime in the comments if I'm right about that? Can coaching or support help managers who are very like get it done, non-empathetic? Can it help them learn to open up their management style? One of the things you and I were talking about in our prep session yesterday was that when you're talking about leaning into values, you can lead effectively from all different kinds of styles. But
Yeah.
if there is somebody who's just about like money, performance, get it done, like people in the comments are saying, yes, we deal with that. Is that a person who could benefit from some coaching? Or are they kind of a lost
Absolutely.
cause?
Absolutely. Like EQ, some people are born with it. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Bravely. Um,
Nice.
I think that again, it all comes back to self-awareness. Like that, how many of you have dealt with managers within your org that are driving performance, but everybody hates them, right? So it's like, what do we do about this person? They wouldn't stay at my organization. But that's not how all organizations operate. And I've worked in those organizations. I've worked beside those people. Like you still have to learn to work with them. But I've seen it firsthand when they get coaching. This is before I, you know, founded Bravely. They change because they get shaken down a little bit and slapped around and told like this is the feedback. This is why 360s are amazing. This is why, you know, I like I think the old way of performance management is like gonna go bye-bye. But
Yeah.
um it only helps us if we're getting a loop of like, this is how you're perceived, because we all think we're great
Yeah, yeah, it's a good
until
point.
told otherwise.
Which ties in, and Rebecca, I know we just have a couple minutes, so feel free to come back in the room whenever as we sort of wrap up. But that ties back to actually the use case for the AI coach, because we all think we're great, and a coach that we're talking to once a month isn't seeing how we're actually behaving. We come and we go, my boss has it out for me, and they don't know what's really going on. But the AI coach is in the meeting seeing, like, well, you're being kind of a jerk in these meetings. She's
I
nicer
mean,
than
B
that.
has made me realize that I like steamroll over like with good intent, but I don't pause and ask for like other people's thoughts on an idea, and now I do.
Hmm.
Um, And there's no, unless my manager, who doesn't exist, was in the room for every meeting, I don't think I would have known that.
Yeah.
So she's helping me. So, and I'm perfect, you guys. So, I'm kidding, obviously.
I think we have another question, but I think we're out of time. I don't know if we have time to answer it, Rebecca.
Yeah, why don't you answer that one last question and we can just wrap up and let folks go on.
Okay, great. Sarah, basically just about bringing fractional people, on staff people, everyone with their own management style into the culture of the company.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to, SAS is fractional. I think you have to like do upfront work with that and make sure that even your fractional people are a fit. Like I met a lot of people and was like on the fence. I met Sass and I was like, when can you start? Um, so you know, when you know, but I think it's like the same recruiting lens that you would have with anyone, honestly.
Hmm. Well, and again, one of the things about B is that you can program her to be looking for and encouraging certain kinds of behaviors. If you have certain values in your company, you can teach her to be looking for those. And so if you have a warmer culture or a cooler culture or a more analytical culture,
Yeah.
she could be calling people out if they're not acting in that way. Not calling people out, calling people in
Yeah.
is the way we say it. Yeah,
I think you got to treat fractional people like they're full-time employees too. Like that's
yeah,
just my
yeah.
and then I'll just say, Krista, we don't keep any transcripts. This is a big one for us and always has been. So even with like our coaching sessions, but happy to share more with you on that. This was so fun.
And really, everybody, please, we put Sarah's LinkedIn in there a couple of times. Please follow her. We tried not to do a sales pitch. If you want to buy Bravely, please get in touch.
Call
But just
us.
follow Sarah. Sarah's the real deal. I mean, she is the real deal. You guys can see that. She is a very, I
Good
wish
time.
more CEOs were like Sarah. She's the real deal. So get in touch.
Thanks,
Amazing.
everybody.
I know it's not a sales pitch, but I did want to give you a little bit of time to talk about Bravely in case people are interested. I was working with Megan on your team and she was telling me about B. I personally am very excited. I want to know more. I'm sure more people are in the same boat. So please feel free to spend a few moments here to share a little bit more about Bravely and the work that you're doing.
I mean, I think everybody probably realizes we're a human coaching platform. We have this new AI Coach B. The intent is just we want B to feel like Sass and me to anybody using her, like a, a support mechanism that feels warm and caring, and as we're doing everything we can to accomplish that via AI, but then also like is sort of ruthless in helping identify like these are the things that you're doing that are holding you back because we all need it.
So you
Amazing.
can do AI coaching, human coaching, or both. We have
Right.
workshops as well. So depending,
Yep.
you can do programs just for execs, programs just for leaders, programs for ICs, hypos. You can do all sorts of different programs.
Exactly.